I was thinking maybe nearly 60 years ago when I first was introduced to Japanese culture. So we went to a restaurant in San Francisco, had some Japanese food, and there were no chairs in the restaurant. So we had to sit cross-legged, and I'm not used to sitting cross-legged. My leg just, I was just squirming back and forth. And then by great fortune, I was able to uh, meet Suzuki-roshi. This was the early 60s. And I was about your age, like 25. And after a year of sitting, he was just learning how to speak English also. And he had always wanted to come to America. So what happened was that he said that there was some tea master who's going to come and serve us tea. And so we really got excited. So in the Zendo, there was like 40 people, but we didn't know that. I thought it was going to be very tranquil and peaceful and tea's going to be delicious, but it was hell. It was just hell because we had to, each person was served. So I was counting, 36, 37, 38, 39, and then someone on the door, and 3 more people came in. That's it. So learning to sit with pain is a very important thing. And there's 2 kinds of pain. One is pain will hurt you physically, so you have to make a distinction. And then there's one pain, no matter what position you move into, it will still be there. That's the one you work with. You understand that? I had a knee replacement, so I understand about sitting for long periods of time. One that, make the distinction, one that will physically hurt you, and the other one that's the one you work on. Because you're not just working on the physical pain, you work on the mental pain. The idea of where pain comes from that makes it physical. It's very fortunate that we all came together today, because today will be the only day. There's no repeat of this day. So I think what is important is you know something about your mind and how it thinks. And this is incredibly important. I read this to everyone in a study group last Tuesday. And it's from Tulku Urban Rinpoche. He was one of the great lamas of our century. And he said about, furthermore, investigate where does thinking come from. You have to do this as a human being because you're thinking, your mind goes wherever you go. Even when you go out of the Zendo, even when you go on vacation, even when you go back to school, even when you go home, you can't get away from it. That's the importance of meditation. And meditation, the first reality is that you are not meditating to calm your mind. The reality is that your mind is already calm, regardless of what you think. And this is what the Buddha said, not what I'm saying. Because if this wasn't true, how could you ever calm your mind? It's already there. You have everything. This is very important for you to know. Even though you may think you're not calm, you are already calm. You were born with this calmness. Okay. So, he says to investigate and find where did your thought come from? And then the second one is the origin of where your thought comes from. The second one is, does the thinking vanish to someplace? Does the thinking vanish to someplace? Does it go anywhere? These are the three things: coming, dwelling, going. How long does your thought exist? From where did it come from? Where does it come from? How long does it stay? Could be a very short time, could be a long time, but you feed into it, you entertain it. And where does it go? Those three things. This is incredibly important that you begin to understand the thinking mind. Okay? Okay. He says, Rinpoche says, it is non-arising. This word is very important. Where does it come from? You could say that Zazen or Sanzen is non-arising. This is non-arising. No thinking. This is non-arising. You are non-arising with me. Okay? This is the essence of Sanzen, the essence of sitting, non-arising. Non-arising means non-doing. You're not doing anything. If you're not doing anything and the mind's non-arising, it means that you're liberated. You have released the thinking mind, the discursive mind, for once. But you've done it already, but you haven't recognized it. Your mind has been liberated or has stopped already. But you have yet to realize it. And sometimes you need it, or maybe most of the time, you need a teacher to point it out. Because we all came from the universe. So we were endowed with its precious quality. And we have to find out, what is this precious quality that we have? It's like the Buddha story about your friend. You had a good time. You met your friend, and you had a very good time, and you had a few drinks, and he went to sleep early. But your other friend sewed a precious pearl into your shirt, and then he left. And his other friend with the pearls sewn in his shirt never found it. So it's that close. It's even closer than you think, because you have it. This is the first important thing. Next, does the thinking vanish to some place? Does it go anywhere? Dwelling is like putting an object in place and having it stay there. That's dwelling. Does your present thinking dwell anywhere? Where is the thinking from yesterday or from tomorrow? Try to find where all these thoughts are and where they were. first investigate the arising. Where the thoughts come from. Keep on examining like this until you discover there is no source. Try to find the source of your thinking. What's the source? Where does it come from? Have you ever thought of that? This is incredibly important. This is Dzogchen teaching, and translated is Tibetan teaching. Suzuki-roshi, I had a very close relationship with Trungpa. And in those days, things were not as organized as they are now, or maybe not so. But anyway, you don't have to make an appointment to see a teacher. So one day, Trungpa visited Suzuki-roshi without making an appointment, and Suzuki-roshi was a little angry because he had to come down from the stairs, and he finally saw Trungpa, and Trungpa saw he was angry, and what Trungpa did immediately, he circumambulated Suzuki-roshi 3 times, sunwise, and then Suzuki-roshi was not angry anymore. This is Buddhist language. And so Dzogchen teaching, it's called a great perfection. And because it's great perfection, it includes all our delusion and ignorance. It includes that. Bad and good are not divided. They're one thing. There's always 2 things. Zen, maybe the Zen is just a flat. There's no dimension to it. It's one-sided. But the Zen we're talking about is Tathagata Zen. It includes both sides. Sometimes in just your plain conversation thinking, you'll think of one way of saying something, but then you say, but there's another way of saying something else. But in Zazen is when Tathagata means coming and going. It means the 2 sides dissolve into one. And that's what happens in Zazen. If we do not dissolve the opposites, we're taught in school, tradition, and culture, we've divided everything, which is very serious for humanity. Especially you don't have to look very far. Humanity, including religion, is really at a very low point in the entire world. So who did this? We did it through our own greed, capitalism, whatever you want to call it, media, and our aggression that we have inside of us that we say we don't, and of course our ignorance. This is like the engine that propels our karma. And when I go to Kaiser, or when I go to San Francisco, just look at the people and the illness is caused. That, I mean, it's not that Suzuki-roshi didn't die by cancer, but he was not afraid of cancer. That's a big difference. The Karmapa had cancer. He was not afraid of it. It means that we're not going to be perfect. We won't have any disease. We won't have any sickness, but we know how to live with it. Really live with it without fear. Because there will come a time we are all successful in dying. We cannot fail. But actually, you can learn how to die while you're living. And meditation Sanzen is a kind of dying. Sanzen, San is invitation, and Zen is the universe. It's everything. We all have the same mother. And also San means to die, you know. And what is to die is the self that we've created, our self-centeredness. We have to let that go. And it's created by this way of thinking. Dwelling. It's like putting an object somewhere and wanting it to stay there. First, investigate the arising. Where do the thoughts actually come from? Keep on examining this until you discover there's no source. This is an important point in Dzogchen teaching. Spend time looking into the source of thinking until you find that there's no source anywhere. To discover it has no origin is called the Dharmakaya. So there are three in the ritual chant, meal chant, we chant Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya. These are the three bodies of the Buddha. The Dharmakaya is the enlightened body. You could call it emptiness, but the emptiness, the ness, shunyata, the ta, we don't say empty because that's just about physical space. We say emptiness. Ness means cognizance. The idea is not of the self is not there. So just a few days ago, I was going to get out of my car, and sometimes I just stay in the car because my back hurts. And as I was there, I noticed a deer came by less than 3 feet away from me. So I saw it, and it saw me, and then it lowered its horns to me. And I went, just a small, anyway. But there's no idea of self. That's what it means. Idea of self. We're still there. Okay? Dharmakaya. And Nagihara Juna, one of our great ancestors, Indian ancestor, he says something about emptiness means it's the interrelationship, the underlying interrelationship of all things. It's not interdependent. Interdependent means we separated everything. It's not interdependent, but it's related to all things, including our experience, which we experience. This is emptiness. Because it sounds negative, but yet it's full of, it's vital. It's our spirit, it's our life. It's the heart of our life. And 2 more paragraphs in this. It's about dwelling again. You just remember come, staying, going. Those are the 3 things. Continue on by searching for where the thinking remains. Investigate. Where is it? Is it outside or inside this body? Is it anywhere in the world? Is it there Is there an abode where mind stays? When you realize it, non-dwelling, non-abiding, this is called the Sambhogakaya. Sambhogakaya is the bliss, the realization of the three bodies of Dharmakaya. Finally, where does the thinking go? When you analyze like this, you won't find any place whatsoever. Once you are totally certain that the thinking doesn't go anywhere, this is called meeting the Nirmanakaya, the personification. The person is holiness. And this is the quality of all Buddhists. This is why Dzogchen teaching stresses the importance of resolving the non-existence of arising, the non-existence of dwelling, the non-existence of ceasing. This is considered an incredibly important preparation because realizing the lack of origin is to meet the Dharmakaya. Lack of origin. One time, to make this story short, I was on the fire watch, and each 8 or 7 steps, you strike the wooden. I think they're hanging right up there. The wooden sticks as you circumambulate the property. And there's one area past the Inryu, which is very dark. And the people, when you alternate this position, the people, the students say it's very kind of scary there. In fact, it might be even Bigfoot might live there. And so when it came my turn, I came down, and what happened was that I could, my heart started beating, and then I said to that fear, or I said, you have no origin, and it just went. That it was seen through. When it's seen through, it doesn't exist. It's not real. Lack of origin is to meet the Dharmakaya. Realizing the absence or abiding, the dwelling place, is to meet the Sambhogakaya. Realizing that thinking does not go anywhere is to meet the Nirmanakaya. In short, understand these 3 qualities of your mind as unconfined, empty cognizance. Empty in essence, cognizance by nature, and unconfined in its capacity. When you recognize the unconfined, empty cognizance as your own nature, at that moment, you are face to face with the Trikaya. Actually, I wrote this for this talk, but we don't have the time to go over this whole thing. my title was the 5 training practices for Sanzen. And I've stopped using the word practice. I think it's been misused for maybe the first 50 or 60 years. But training is the thing. And people don't like the word training, but that's what it comes down to. You have to train. Discipline is a preparation for you to make the next step. If you don't have the training or discipline, you can't make the next step. I mean, it's not just in Zen, but in the arts, in music, in joinery, carpentry. You have to train someone who can transmit or impart with you his or her knowledge and experience. In fact, when you think of Buddha, you have to think of him as an enlightened being, an awakened being. He has nothing to do with Buddhism's philosophy, and he imparted his teachings to teacher, teacher from teacher to disciple. You can't just read a book and that's it. It can't be online. It has to be person to person, imparted, transmission. These are ancient words, but they're still alive today. And also the I am, or the self-centered mind, the small self. Who has the conditioned interpretation. Beware of that as you begin to understand things or accept things or receive things, because it begins interpreting. Okay, so we don't have that much time, but I think you get the idea. Shugyo means training. And once you've had realization, which you've already had, but you didn't know it, that realization is like a baby realization. Everyone has had it, and maybe you need someone to point it out. But just because you've had that realization doesn't mean it's over. It's just the beginning. You need to strengthen. You need to train. It's like a baby becoming of age, like an adult. You have to train over and over until it has the stability to stand up and mature. You know what I mean? So this is really important. We have to train. And the next one is shuju or shushu. Training in Sanzen. And what the training is in our Sanzen means to unify the scattered mind. That's what we're doing. Unifying the scattered mind. And it's interesting, skandhas is these 5 characteristics make up the false self. It's form, your sensation, your perception, your volition or discrimination, and your consciousness of. It makes up the false self. Okay? So we're trying to unify. And I'm saying we're trying to, but actually as your Sanzen matures, you will be not, your meditation, you don't do anything. First, you try to do something. You try to be quiet, try to sit straight, try to not move. But these are all the scenery along the path. And you shouldn't say I did a bad sitting, I moved too much. That's just the scenery along the path. Everyone does it. No one is in is everyone does it. You shouldn't berate yourself because that's what the small self does. You did that again. I shouldn't do this. It has nothing good to tell you, but at the same time, most people are enslaved by it. Why? Okay, so we have the five skandhas, and in Chinese and Japanese kanji, five, it's go-un. I find this very interesting. Go-un means bundle. Now, here you have two opposites, scattering and bundle. Bundle means how you bundle a baby or how you tie something up. So in Zazen, as you mature in your Zazen, as you train in your Zazen, you don't do anything. You let the scattering scatter because that's its activity. And when it will finish scattering because it cannot continue scattering. These are the principles of the universe. If it continues to scatter, the universe would collapse. So the scattering runs out of energy, and then the bundle comes and ties up. It's crazy. Where there's light, there's dark. Where there's dark, there's light. There's a pistachio tree that we planted near in front of our living room, and it's green, but yet there's a little red, just a speck of red. And in time, that red, this is about opposites, light and dark. It increases, and in this month, it'll turn completely red. So there's dark and light, always, but we've separated. It's always light, or it's always dark. But the dark is within the light is within the dark. If it wasn't so, we couldn't exist. It works together. It's like the yin and yang symbol. It's a beautiful symbol because it includes each other. It's within the great circle. And so before there was dhyana, is one pointed concentration. But even so, you could say that it's flat, has no dimension. It didn't include the other side. So Tathagata is very important. Coming and going. Coming and going has everything. So we just don't call it Zen, we call it Tathagata Zen. Zen is flat. It's our idea. I mean, we're not trying to restrain anything. We're not trying to do anything. Eventually, you'll be just sitting there, but you don't know it, that you're not thinking. And that's why you love to sit. But you don't know why. And you have yet to realize it. So when, like the daytime now, there is dark, I'm not talking about the other side of the world, but right now, in the shadows, it, it exists that way. It's the principles of the universe. Someone, yeah, it was in the study class, asked, are there any new sutras? But, but there's, there's no new sutras because Buddha said everything. Even Dogen, as brilliant as he was, he's just one of our brilliant ancestors. He didn't invent it. He's referring back to the Buddha's teaching because they were complete. It didn't leave anything out. And so after Buddha, it was the Dharma, the Buddha Dharma was expressed in different ways because it's infinite. And so it's infinitely expressed. Sutras, it's not a philosophy, it's not an idea, it's the great perfection. So this non-doing or non-arising means it frees ourselves from suffering. And part of that suffering is our greed or self-centeredness, our aggression, and our ignorance of it. And also, it not only frees ourselves from our own suffering, but also the suffering of others. Yeah, I hope that this class takes this with you. Yeah, I'm really, you're our next generation. And I was thinking our legacy for you is not very good. You know, before the atomic bomb and before a lot of things, there was hope after you graduated school. But maybe because it's so hopeless, you will do something. Okay. Yeah, thank you for coming.